Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is still Mitchell's 1977 Dodge D200 crew cab long bed, currently going under the knife. In the last episode, I test drove this thing and found some terrible noise coming from the Dana 60 rear axle. So today, Allan and I are going to tear that apart and see if we can't fix it. This is a rebuild kit that's been sitting on the counter for a month now. So I guess it's time to put that to use. At the same time, I need to go through this carburetor because although it kind of sort of works now, the accelerator pump is nothing to write home to mother about. So I'm going to rebuild that. Also, I tried to use this truck recently for a run to the junkyard, and within 5 blocks, the wiper linkage fell apart. So I'll fix that too. Nice. The cool thing about the Dana axle is these shafts will just slide right out. We don't even have to take the wheels off this truck. It did pretty much fire right up today without too much cranking or complaining, and I'm impressed with that. When I try to rev this thing past about 3,000 RPM, it starts doing bad stuff. It's breaking up, and I could see on the tach that the RPMs are dropping before the engine even responds, really. So that tells me there's an ignition problem, either with the tach itself, wouldn't be any great surprise, with the distributor, or with this orange box over here. One of those things is causing a horrible ignition breakup around 3,000 RPM. Under that, it's fine. And again, though I'm going to go through the carburetor, I'm fairly certain that is not a fuel issue. It's got to be on the ignition side, otherwise the tachometer wouldn't be freaking out like that. All kinds of commenters were impressed with this unique turnbuckle configuration. Maybe I'll find some real springs that fit to put on here. In later years, these axle shafts are retained with a simple bolt, but in these years, it's a stud, and there's a cone spacer in the middle. So you can see that's a tapered piece that locks into that axle shaft. And that's also a locking nut on the stud. I've never seen one of these studs pull out, but apparently that happens sometimes. Anyway, with the nuts off, we've got to get these cones freed up, and that's probably going to involve a hammer, just smacking the axle shaft here. If you're lucky, just tapping the shaft like that'll knock the cones free. Do note, if you're going to leave your wheels in place, it's highly likely you'll get some gear oil out of here when the shaft comes loose, so be ready for that with a rag. I got to go chase down all those cones. Yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. Truck's kind of tilted on the lift here, so that would explain that. Why is this gear oil kind of red? Oh, there's also red grease in here. These bearings are wet. They're lubricated by gear oil. You don't want to pack these with grease. That's a bad idea. These axle shafts don't even need to come all the way out. They only have to come out just far enough to clear the guts of the differential. So we can pull that out. Allan's going to pull the diff cover and drain the fluid, which looks fun. And then we'll be employing this thing, one of the weirdest tools in the known universe, the Dana axle case spreader. I'll show you how that works in a minute here. Allan found a tag on the diff. It's got 4 10s. Which seems right, and also means this will not be a freeway flyer. Now, I was considering pulling this whole carburetor off and kitting it on the bench, but you know what? As well as it runs, I don't think it needs anything major. It really just needs an accelerator pump. So I'm going to open it up, spray it out, change the pump, put it back together, and hopefully that's good. Apparently someone lost the tiny clip off the choke rod, which is not that hard to do, and they replaced it with part of a bread clip. You know how I know the new mechanical pump I put on this thing is a good one? The spurting fuel everywhere. Watch your eyeballs. You know, I could have put a rag down. Okay, except it kind of does work. Oh well, we're already here. Of course, before the lid comes off the Carter Edelbrock type carburetor, you need to pull the needles and the vacuum pistons out, which I've done. These have a weird OE number on them. I think it's 6-485. No idea what that means. This does appear to be a 2-stage needle. I've seen 3-stage needles in some of these things. Anyway, for some reason, the right side one is totally missing the little spring clip thing that holds the rod in the piston. I think these are silver step-up springs, or are these black? Or blue? It can be really hard to tell sometimes. I don't even know if the OE ones are colored, come to think of it. Anyway, this is a pretty weak spring. Almost like they're trying to keep it on the cruise side and keep things lean. For some reason, this model has 2 extra screws inside the air horn. Never seen that before somehow. Also, cool thing, as soon as I loosen the last screw, the whole lid just pops right free, so that's good. Yeah, okay, could be worse. You know, that accelerator pump isn't even all that old. So just put it right back together? Yeah, probably. All right, the sand sitting in the bottom of the fuel bowl is not great. Bowls are clean. That wasn't so bad. Floats are not full of gas. I always like to check that. Yeah, those needles and seats are brand new. So is this gasket. So is this accelerator pump. And the one in the kit I bought looks exactly the same. I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall this and pretend this never happened. Also, I may adjust the rod settings somewhat. Grab the missing needle clip from my parts collection, so that's good to go. And I'm certainly not replacing the missing choke rod clip with one I stole off of one of my brother's many Edelbrock carburetors sitting around the shop. I would never do that. Like it never happened. Allan's got the driveline loose and strapped up out of the way so we can access the pinion nut. That's nice. Looking in the differential here. Now I'll tell you what, I don't see any horrible destruction. And more than that, spinning it by hand, I don't hear any noise. I don't feel any roughness or anything like that. But we're gonna go ahead and put bearings in this thing. If we see anything obvious, that'll answer the question there. If not, at least it'll have a rebuild axle. Did you know gear oil smells? Well, it does. Anyway, here we are removing the carrier. Notice we've got the case spreader installed. What this does is slightly opens up the Dana case, which of course is cast iron, such that the carrier can be pulled out. With this tool loose, as it is right now, this thing should be locked solid in there. And it actually moves slightly. That's interesting. Still a pretty tight fit though, and it's not just falling out, so. Anyway, the case spreader is tightened right here. It'll open it up just enough that that carrier should come out. I actually did a Dana overhaul years ago without the case spreader. You're not really supposed to be able to do that because again, it should be a press fit. That carrier with its bearing shells on it should just perfectly fit in there. I'm gonna start cranking on this. You don't wanna get too excited with that either. You only need to open it up like, what, a couple thousandths at most? Real shame the camera wasn't rolling when that thing popped out of there. I just had to go back and forth with the pry bar and it came easily enough. Now Allan's working on the pinion nut over there with a giant pair of the Knipex pliers and an impact gun. Well, that was too easy. Well, already I've found something. I don't know if you can actually see this at all, but there are pits in this race for the side bearing. The other one doesn't look as bad, but this was the right side one, and it is distinctly pitted. Go for horrible noises. Yep. Nice. That might be one of the easiest ones I've ever seen. Allan's hooking the outer seal with the pry bar to pop that out, hopefully. Meanwhile, I found something really entertaining. Maybe you see it too. It's a mysterious pokey thing sticking out of the fluid here. So that started out life as a cup for one of the spider gears. Why is it there? That's interesting. Anyway, it looks like that has been scraping on the pinion, which I know because there's a line. Well, that ain't good. I've never seen this happen before. But apparently this guy got shredded, rolled its way out of there, and then ended up wedged under the pinion, which is really cool. So I made some calls. O'Reilly couldn't get it. The local guys couldn't get it, but AutoZone could have this at 5 p.m. So it's on the way. I'm gonna have to roll the gears out of here, put that washer in there, put it all back together at the same time as removing these side bearings. I don't really think that was the noise. I'm just going down the road. These spider gears are kind of just along for the ride. They're really only in play going around corners and such, so pretty sure the noise was elsewhere. Most likely in the pinion, actually. Remember a minute ago when I said something about that sounding like a pinion noise? Well, add this to the list of things I've never seen before in my life. The inner pinion race on this thing just comes out. That's supposed to be a press fit. So that's not good. I could be wrong, but that sure looks like evidence that this race was spinning in the housing, which should never ever happen. Okay, now I'm looking in this race for further pitting, and I did find some, but I also see what I think is evidence of sanding. You see that? That kind of cross-hatch pattern, which I would not expect to see on a race like this. I think that means somebody had this out and cleaned it up and reinstalled it. I don't know, just being cheap on a rebuild or something? What you got there?
I don't know, but I'm hoping whatever it is isn't alive. Something's been making a home. Ooh, that's how you get rust.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of special. Anyway, as you can see, Allan got into this whole wiper linkage issue. This bushing on this side of the main rod here fell apart, and that may be because it was jammed into a rat's nest. I don't know. We're gonna get that vacuumed out as best we can. And while we're here, we're just gonna have to go ahead and do all 4 of these. I mean, yeah, look how dry rotted and terrible they are. Allan has elected to do this the easy way and remove the whole linkage from the truck. I never do it the easy way. I always do it the hard way up in the cowl. This is way nicer. Bit of good news, the outer pinion bearing race actually did fit correctly. It had a nice press to it. I was able to drive it out with a brass drift and a hammer. In case you were wondering how a cupped washer could end up there from here, through the top section there, it's totally open. But it's interesting imagining its journey to that point. The next big question is this. Was this inner pinion race like sanded down to fit more easily? Or do we have a case fitment problem? The way I'm gonna find that out is by grabbing the new inner pinion race and seeing if it just falls right in the hole. Yeah, that just popped right in there by hand. So, something is wrong with that bore. It's been enlarged somehow. One possibility is the original inner pinion bearing seized up somehow and spun the race. Or somebody sanded it to make the race fit in there because they thought they should. I don't know. It doesn't look rough or scored or screwed up at all, but yeah, that race just falls right in there. So my options here are pretty limited. Option 1 is go out and find a new axle housing. Yeah, that's not happening today. Option 2, I can stake that race in place. That would mean taking a hammer and a punch, going around the outer circumference of that race in the housing and creating little pock marks. That way, when I drive the race in, the raised areas around the pock marks will hold it in place. It's kind of like a farm boy fix, you know? It will probably work, but this diff and this pinion take a lot of force. And someday it might spin in there, which is not ideal, but it's kind of the best I can do right now. As you can see, I dropped the shims out. I'm planning to just reinstall the shims as they were. Hopefully all that's still right. As you can see there's some evidence that that race is spun. Shinier area there. I was thinking it might be blued from heat somewhat, but it's really hard to tell. I don't know, but it's nice and smooth. I mean, it's not grooved up or anything. Slice my little pinky open on a nicely machined surface, cleaning this housing out, which, as you can see, I'm not quite done with, but I am making sure all of the old oil and the little bits of brass that rained down in the housing are removed. Now we've both got a Band-Aid. Anyway, Allan's out here replacing the bushings and the wiper linkage. I did a video on this way back, like, I don't know, a year ago. So if you're interested in that, go find it. Yay! Did that park? Well, it turns out this wiper motor doesn't park for some reason or another, but everything works again, so back together it goes. Here's my toolkit for staking the bearing. I've got a hammer, obviously, a nice chisel with a point on the end, and a handle, so hopefully I don't beat my own hand. 60-HD. Nice. Apparently the HD actually did mean something on these housings. They're beefier. They've got extra strengthening ribs and stuff. Maybe actually impossible to do this at all, because I can't. How's that supposed to work? I don't know. I've never had to do this inside a differential before. It's not recommended, I'll tell you that. This did create little marks. That shouldn't. This is dumb. Might be all we're gonna get. Fast forward to me putting a different housing in this in like a year or two. Bummer his other truck doesn't have a Dana 60. We can just take that out right now. Yeah, it is kind of sort of doing something, I guess. Yeah, I couldn't swing a hammer in there at all. What did kind of work is swinging this like a hammer. I was able to create little pock marks. They're not as impressive as I'd like them to be, but well, it is what it is. I did try to stagger them in and out such that there's extra support on the inside and the outside of the race. Hopefully that'll lock it in place and keep it from spinning. There's really not much else I can do here. I'll take the fact that the race won't just fall back into place as a good sign. Now I'll grab the proper race installation tool and drive it home. These are aluminum, so they won't mar the harder surface of the race, which is good. This one doesn't actually fit it. It's a little too small, so I'm gonna be driving in the bearings running area instead of on the edge like this should be designed to hit. Well, the race is home and it is actually stuck in place, so that's good. I can't stress enough to you how not ideal this is, but unfortunately, it's what we've got. Let's move on.
There's more than one there.
Oh yeah, Allan's over here ruining stuff. I didn't do that. Would you stop bleeding on everything? Allan got the cross shaft out and rolled the spider gears out of the carrier, or what's left of them anyway. This is not looking too hot. It's pretty well scored, and as you can see, there's some material here that's really nasty. Unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck with this cross shaft, so I'm just gonna have to clean it up as best I can and reinstall it once that washer gets here. Got the new outer pinion race driven in. I actually had a tool that fit that one. Now I can install the bearing after applying some grease. Not grease, gear oil. I can put the one steel shim that goes outside the bearing in, and then I can drive the new seal home. After that, I can install the pinion gear from in there, carefully shove it through here, reinstall the yoke, and then using a new lock nut, tighten it down to spec, whatever the heck that is. A lot, I think. I'm reinstalling the shims that I took out. This is not a crush sleeve axle. That means you have to get the shim stack correct to get the spacing between the two bearings right. If it's not right, it will become apparent as the nut is being tightened down. Long before it reaches final torque, it'll either be too tight to turn or super loose and sloppy. So we're gonna find out. I'm just about ready to pre-lube the inner bearing, reinstall the shims, and shove that back in the axle housing. Allan went to pick up the dished washer, which we ordered from the AutoZone. The part they got in the bag that was labeled for the dished washer was not a dished washer. It was a dirty snap ring. So that's cool, we reordered it. But on the bag, it did happen to say that 8 3/4 Chrysler uses the same dished washer. And I did kind of already have that thought. I don't know why they would be the same. The cross shaft's smaller in the 8 3/4, but apparently they may work. So now I'm gonna tear down one of my spare center sections and see if that's correct. Because it would be really nice to get this thing done tonight. It's currently stuck halfway in the shop, so yeah. Alan's over here ruining more things to get us a washer. Yeah. It's a washer, but does it fit? Good news, everyone. It actually fits. Yay. What's funny is I almost took that carrier apart for this like 3 hours ago, but I decided it was probably too small. I'm getting the pinion set up here. Now I started out with no shims at all, and I'll just lie to you and say that I did that on purpose to seat the races in the housing, but actually I just forgot. Then I took it back apart, which thankfully was pretty easy on this one. It's not just falling apart, but it is sliding apart without too much force, so that's kind of nice. I reinstalled the shim pack that I removed, put it all back together, and it was still just too tight. So I figured it needed one more thin shim. So I added 2 more thin shims, and now it's too loose. And you'll know that because there's not enough drag here, but also there's actually movement. And it's hard for me to show you that, but there you go. Any discernible movement side to side, up and down like this, that ain't good. So I'm gonna take it apart again, take out the second shim, and then we'll see if it's close enough. Now in between these different sessions, I'm not fully torquing this nut, and obviously I'm using the old nut because when I install the new nut, which is a locker, that'll be for good. I don't wanna ruin that by taking it on and off, so I'm using the old nut for now. We'll get this figured out, get the shim set right, and then I'll put the new one on and torque it properly. Pulled the second shim, and it's pretty much perfect now. Got a good bit of preload there. It's not super difficult to turn, but it's not super easy either. And there's no discernible movement in any direction. In, out, up, down, side to side. So that's just about perfect. I'm gonna pull that old nut off, put the new one on there, and torque it to, yeah, whatever the spec is. Yep, it's torqued. Hey, this is cool. This is the other cupped washer. Look at how not round that is. Allan thankfully caught that and went and grabbed the other washer out of that 8 3/4, and now we've replaced both of them. Admittedly, the spider gears are still kind of loose, but much better than before, and yeah, we're ready to be done with this. Carrier's back in now, and I do have the spreader loose. Now on the first try, because I reused the original shims, didn't work. Now I'll have you know, when I first pulled out the carrier, it was kind of loose anyway, and I thought it might be down to our bearing issue, but not so much. When I put it in with the new shims, even when I fully loosened the spreader, I could just pop this thing right back out. And it looked like all of the play was on the back side of the gear here. So I added one thicker and one thinner shim on this bearing and popped it back in. It was then a tight fit going into the case, as it should be. And here's our play, or our gear lash. And that seems about right to me. Now I've got to torque the caps down, clean up this gasket surface, and put this thing back together finally. Cover is back on. I cleaned it and applied some Right Stuff silicone, which is what you can see there around the edge. They do not include a gasket for this, and it had silicone before, so I suppose that's just normal. It's like 8 o'clock and freezing cold and raining. It's time to go eat some lasagna or something. So what I'm going to do now is let this set up overnight. But I have to move this truck tonight because it's stuck halfway in the shop. So I'm going to slide the axle shafts back in, bolt them down, and ever so gingerly drive this thing out. You'll notice I didn't do anything with the axle flange gasket here. This one's stuck on the hub. It's not damaged at all, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Of all of the Danas I've pulled the shafts out of before, I've never had one of those seals be a problem. And because I said that, the one on the other side ripped. Yay! Battery was dead for reasons, so I pushed it. Another beautiful day. You know, I pulled the battery and the dead jump box last night, but I forgot to charge both of them. You know I love Dodge trucks, but no one would suggest that they were the best built things. Look at this bedside. It's like tilted that way. Neat. Anyway, for some reason, no one has an axle flange gasket. Maybe the reason is no one works on these things anymore. I don't know. Anyway, had to order one from the O'Reilly. Swear I have one in my stash somewhere, but can't find it. So weird I can't find anything. If I was really desperate, I'd just make one, but I guess I'll just wait. I rolled under there and torqued the diff cover, so we're good. I do need gear oil. I'm currently lacking that for some reason, so when my shaft seal shows up, I'll go pick up both of those things. When I fired the truck up this morning, it kind of seemed like maybe the choke wasn't working anymore. I'm confident I hooked that linkage back up, but I don't know, something could be going on. So once I get the rear diff stuff finished, I'll flip this thing around so I can diagnose that not in the rain. After that, the only things left on the list are installing this brake controller, which was a shiny new one installed in Mitchell's old truck, the black thing I took apart. So I'll do that. Should be pretty easy because the brake wire going back to the back already exists. Hopefully that's still good. And then the other thing is a pair of headlight bulbs, maybe, because they don't look very good. The main issue that I pointed out in the first video is the headlight fluid is a little low on this side. Okay, actually I forgot this because it's not on my original list, but I do have to put a full set of door and window seals in this truck. Mitchell ordered them and they are here and I'm not looking forward to it. It's entire days later and it's time to get this truck done. New flange gasket is installed. It was as simple as pulling the shaft all the way out, scraping most of the old gasket off of the axle itself, and the rest off of the hub. I've got 3 quarts of regular 80/90 gear oil in this thing now, and it's absolutely perfect. Of course, when I say 3 quarts, I couldn't quite perfectly empty those bottles, so it's probably more like 2.7 something. Yeah, I never set the cold idle speed. It was completely backed out. So I did that, and it cold idles now. All right, I gave the warm idle a bump too. I have a habit of setting those way too low. I think it's good now. I'm gonna replace the headlights, put the other battery back in, secure the hold down, and I think I'm done up here. Well, aside from wiring the brake controller thing. Brake controller is mounted to the dash. Now I just have to terminate the brake switch wire and find the wire that goes to the back of the truck. I have no idea where it is, but there definitely was one. Door seals. They shouldn't look like this. Obviously that one's been falling off and going to bits for years. There's a bunch of horrible, I want to say, bathroom sealant right here, which I'm currently chipping off with a plastic wedge. It's not going well. Also, can't get the sill off. I'm gonna try and destroy this one screw that's holding it in place. Anyway, the new seal just locks over this pinch weld. It's really easy to install. It splits kind of there. You start it here, you work it around, and then once you get back here, you just cut it. You can glue the seam if it makes you feel better. I suppose I'll go ahead and replace these pieces that seal with the glass as well. At least the outside ones, and at least on the front doors. These kits are actually both for front doors. The outside seals work. I think these seals might kind of sort of work, but the clip locations are actually different for the sweeps. So, door seals. Now that I've destroyed this one, I decided to actually look in the box of new parts, and I found this. This is not the right thing. It's supposed to lock around that pinch weld. It just slides right in and you're done. This is a generic rubber that gets glued in place. That's dumb. I happen to know that a company called Steel Rubber, that's S-T-E-E-L-E, carries the right ones. I also happen to know that whatever this is costs like half as much as the Steel Rubber kit. And I understand that. I too hate spending money, but I'm not putting this on the truck. Maybe I am, because what I thought was a whole door kit that I had in stock is just the window pieces. Problem solving. I put door seals on Mitchell's old truck years ago. Of course, it's sitting here in parts truck row now, so it won't miss them. At least this driver's side one. Kind of have to get that replaced at this point. There you go. It's a door seal. In case you were wondering, yes, I was planning to use those on the ramp truck, but it is what it is. With that in place, I can show you the problem these always create on tin grills. Always. Every time, without fail, the doors don't shut right with the new seals. Now Now the reason that happens is because this corner right here crashes into the gasket in that area where it curves upward and creates an interference point. Now on the 78 crew cab we restored, I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to relieve this pinch weld in here and kind of shove the gasket inward, but nothing I ever did made any difference, so I'm unwilling to try. Okay, I've become somewhat enlightened. For some reason I was thinking this stuff didn't actually have the slot in it, and it does. It just didn't look hard enough, but it is supposed to be reinforced so it grabs onto that pinch weld, and you can see that in the original type gasket. This doesn't have that at all. Turns out someone else already put these in this truck, and that's what I just removed. Awful, destroyed garbage. You can see around all the other doors how it doesn't cover the pinch weld correctly. Yeah, that's what this crap gets you. Passenger headlight is replaced. And the ring broke. Only 2 out of those 3 screws do anything now. Taking the driver's side bulb off, and the ring broke right here at the seam, which is super common. Maybe it's a tiny tack weld, I don't know. Anyway, it's broken now, and I'm out of spares. Fixed, kinda. Hopefully that fits around the bulb. Yeah, that works great actually. Headlight's done. You ever have a project that just feels like it's going on forever? That's this truck for me right now. Yeah, I'm tired of looking at it. Recall, if you will, in the first episode, I removed one of those old school adjustable brake resistors from this spot right here. I thought there was a wiring coming up here from the 7-pin, but, well, there isn't. I had to go review the footage and saw that it had been cut and removed forever ago. Of course, when that thing was installed, 7-pins probably didn't exist yet, so I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's a brake wire, but I don't know where it's going. I did get the new outer window rubber installed on the driver's door. It just clicks right in there. You kind of do this roll move and try not to drop it. Of course, because it's shiny new rubber, it drags on the window really bad, and you have to help it up with a hand. So now I'm going to clean that and then, I don't know, maybe hit it with some WD or something. I think I understand why these are here now. That window doesn't roll all the way up unless you grab it with both hands and like wedge it. And it's loose on the track. Looking forward to having this door apart in the near future, but today is not that day. Deleting the horrible LED dash lights. Look at that. Look how horrible that is. Oh, we've got a front running light out. Smacking it fixed it. Very nice. Anyway, deleting the LED lights, which are dumb and stupid. The wiring runs up through here. That's weird. I'm probably just going to cut it. Oh, it gets even weirder. There. Now the gauges are almost impossible to read again, just like Dodge intended. I still haven't found a wire for the brakes running back to the 7-pin, but I did get the switch wired up, so that's good. I think crawling under the truck to do that's going to wait for a drier day. So with that, it's time for a test drive to make sure the rear end works. Cab long bed is like a lot of truck. There's a reason I titled the first video Tin Grill School Bus. Were there ever tin grill school buses? There were swept line school buses. Anyway, sometime today I'll get this thing turned around. So there's a few things left to do, but all I'm really interested in is making sure it kind of goes down the road okay and the axle doesn't make any horrible noises. What do you think of that awful racket from the wiper motor? Just normal Dodge truck stuff. I only just remembered that ignition cutting out issue. Oh, I forgot safety exists. As I mentioned in the first video, this is a really nice driving truck. Okay, I'm still hearing bearing noise. I think it needs a front wheel bearing. Really? Oh yeah, there was a giant storm the other day. It's a mess out here. That was like that, but yeah. There was whirring noise in the back before, and it's gone. But now, I'm hearing a whirring noise in the front, and I can feel it in the steering wheel at times, and it's very obvious. So yeah, I guess it needs a front wheel bearing too. Did I mention I'm tired of looking at this thing? Well, what did we learn? I don't know. We learned I bent that tailpipe up too high and it's rattling off the trailer hitch, which is slightly annoying. I feel like this video is just a mess of constant scurrying around and doing 1,000 different things. That's what it's like sometimes, trying to get projects like this done and out the door. It's hard to do. Subi woo. I think I hear that guy drive out here from my house all the time. Oh yeah, get it. Right, what did we learn? Tin grills are cool. Rebuilding differentials is obnoxious. Giant projects are a pain. And I think I'm done with this one for now. We also learned to wipe our camera lens. Oh, we also learned to stop noticing things. You know, little sounds, stuff like that. Just let it go. Send it down the road and let it be someone else's problem. I don't mean that. I like this truck. All it needs to fix everything wrong with it is a 12-valve Cummins and a 5-speed. I'm gonna let Mitch take this thing and bomb around town for a little while. I don't think the front wheel's gonna fall off or anything. There's just a little bit of whirring noise. No trips to Mexico, I'm gonna insist on that. Otherwise, this thing's pretty great. It's so long. You could fit like 2 entire 81 Challengers in that thing. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that. In any case, as ever, thanks for watching. And remember, the crew cab. It cabs the crew.